Sponsors play an important role in workplaces as they can help employees develop and advance in their careers. Some of the key benefits are career advancement, increased visibility and confidence, access to new networks, and support during challenging times. I understand that there are many questions that pop up in one's mind. The best part is our panel discussion on I Have Your Back, the importance of sponsors at workplaces will answer them all. Let us invite our first speaker, Jayashri Kulkarni, Business Unit Head, Super Specialities, Reimbursed Business, International Business and Market Access, Janssen, India. Jayashri oversees portfolios in oncology, immunology, neurosciences, dermatology, metabolics, reimbursed business, international business, and the market access function. Jayashri joined Johnson & Johnson in 2010 as a Director of Strategy Planning for India and went on to hold a variety of roles with increasing responsibilities, including leadership roles at a regional and country level. Our second speaker for the session is Suman Mitra, CHRO, St. Gobain India Private Limited. Suman Mitra is a postgraduate in HR resource. For the past 28 years, he has worked in employee relation, human resource, ODA intervention, talent strategy, and end-to-end HR. He has worked with multinationals like Hindustan Unilever, Bosch Limited, and Indian companies like Tractors India Limited. He is currently attached with St. Gobain India, the capacity of Head Human Resources and Administration based out of corporate office of St. Gobain. Our third speaker for this session is Mathew, Head Delivery Excellence, Talent Management, and L&D at Persistent Systems. Merlyn heads the Deliver Excellence, Process Transformation, and Learning and Development units at Persistent Systems. She is focused on ensuring that best in class engineering practices and capabilities are the hallmark of all that we deliver to our clients. In her role, she leads the change on workforce planning and transformation, skill development of existing talent, and onboarding of talent to support new businesses and competencies. This session will be moderated by Kannan Hariharan, Chief Strategist, Culture and Belongingness at Avtar Group. Kannan was Senior Director HR with PepsiCo for over 21 years till March 2018, including 8 years in Vietnam and APAC. Prior to PepsiCo, he had 12 years' experience working in manufacturing service and Indian MNC. Kannan is a recipient of the PepsiCo Harvey C. Russell D&I Award in 2004 and 2014, Chairman's Award for Corporate Social Responsibility in 2006, and Chairman's Award for Business Performance in Vietnam in 2014. He is also a Marshall Goldsmith and Haugen certified coach. Over to you, Kannan.
Hi, Mansa. Thank you very much. And I'm really honored and privileged to have this very august panel members who not only bring with them the depth of the knowledge, but also they bring with them the variety of experience that is required for a topic like this. And, I was sitting through the previous session and listening to personal branding, and I was thinking how beautiful this is a segue into what you talked about personal branding. And as you get into the organization and being a sponsor or being sponsored is another way of building your own personal brand within the organization. And it helps in many ways. How is it and what it is, we'll see through the panel discussion. But before that, I just want to share with you something that I have gone through when we talk about, sponsorship. And, with humility and pride, I must say that during my PepsiCo days, one of my managers told me that, Kannan, if you want to really progress in your life as a leader, whenever you are being discussed in career conversations by the committee or by the calibration team or whoever, other than your manager, at least there must be two other leaders from other business verticals who should put up their hand and say, I want Kannan in my team. And that is what you must create as to be as sponsored for various roles in the organization. And that I'm saying with humility and pride, because I've had the honor and experience of being sponsored at many occasions by my managers, be it Pawan Bhatia, be it Brian Chitester, be it Joy Zhu, Umran Beba. I can name a lot of them, including at some point in time, it was Indra Nooyi who spotted something very unique in me in terms of the corporate social responsibility initiatives. And then she asked her task force to pick up some people, and I was one of them, to be sent overseas for a 2 months leadership in corporate social responsibility program, right? So that's the magic that it creates. That is on the one side of. On the other side of it, I really owe it to my experience and the opportunities that I got. And therefore, over the last few years that I'm out of the corporate job, I'm taking it up on myself to be able to support others, to coach others, to be able to help other leaders in other organizations to go up their career ladder. And this is my way of giving back in terms of sponsorship. So when you talk about sponsorship within an organization, and especially in the career context, it is both ways, right? So that's my story. And now I would like to invite my other panel members to share their story and talk about their experience before we get into the core of the subject. So may I invite Jayashri Kulkarni to share her experience, and then maybe Suman and Merlyn can follow. Thank you very much.
Sure, Kannan. And I think I echo what you said. It's an absolute privilege and honor to be on this panel today, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I think my story is not different from yours when you say that, hey, you need, in addition to your manager, one or two more people who are talking about you when it comes to advancement, right? And through my journey of 24 plus years now in healthcare across 6 organizations, I think at each point when I have pivoted and taken a role, I have seen the value of sponsors. I have seen the value of people saying, hey, let's take a bet on this person. She brings in an understanding of the role that she's putting her hand up for. Let's take a chance. And I think the most recent example I can give you is my current role, where I moved from being in a strategic function to coming on to doing a commercial role. Actually taking care of P&L, looking after 150 plus people as their direct and indirect leader. And I think for that pivot to happen, 2 sponsors really were very important in not just betting on me, but also making sure that I was set up for success. And now looking back 3 years in this role, 3.5 years in this role, showing the kind of growth that we're able to, I think it is an example enough to say that there is indeed a big role that sponsors can play. And I think having those is a huge, huge confidence booster for many leaders at various stages of their professional life. And like you said, I think it also spurred a lot of therefore need personally to be able to say, if I have to now shift roles and say, what can I do for the larger team members, right? So whether it was taking up the women's leadership and inclusion lead role for J&J Enterprise last year, or being part of a wonderful program that we do, which is called as Vital Voices, where a lot of us donate time to work with women entrepreneurs and giving our professional experience to help them succeed in their business ventures. Or to more recently this year, taking up the diversity, equity, and inclusion mentorship role. I think all of those are ways in which I'm trying to give back, like you say, and try and be a sponsor for a multitude of people, not just women. But yeah, that's what I would like to share.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, Jayashri. Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing more experiences from you. Suman, you want to go next?
Yes, so thank you, Kannan. Thank you. And I'm also privileged to be part of this panel discussion. Thanks, Jayashri, also for sharing your part of the story. I would say that when Kannan was mentioning, about some of the people with whom he has worked, I was just thinking that in my career of say 28 years or 29 years, I've worked with multiple bosses. But who is the person or who is the sponsor who has put an indelible mark in my career or in my mind, which has also helped me to shape my career where I am today? I think there will be very few. But those are the role models with whom I think if we can just, I would say that nothing wrong in copying with pride them, pride all of them. And here copying is not a sin. I think we can always talk about copy their attitude, copy their behavior, copy their style in pride. I think that will create definitely, as a sponsor, I'm also a sponsor of a larger team. And if I behave in that way, am I really putting an indelible mark in their career? How many people I'm moving from one portion, one part of it to the next level of their career? I think it's very important in the professional journey, not only professionally, but is there anything are we doing personally also in their life, so that there is a mark in their all of their career. That's it. That's it from my side, Kannan. Yeah.
Thank you, Suman. That's a nice way of putting both the career part of it, the professional and the personal part of it. Lovely, and looking forward to hearing more from you. Merlyn?
Thanks, Kannan, for having me this afternoon. So I think, sponsorship is quite broad, and a lot of times, and I'll give you a slightly different example, right? So I have been a PNL leader and a technologist. And when I moved to Persistent about a year back, I took on a very different role. And the sponsorship came from my boss, who is the CEO. I mean, because he thought, and this is when he hardly knew me, but I think there was another very pivotal person who kind of gave him that confidence. And this was somebody who was a client of mine many years back, right? So I think, a lot of times we think of sponsorship and advocacy coming just from within the hierarchy, but there are a lot of times when this also comes from outside the organization. It is word of mouth. And I think, that's the other bit about sponsorship, right? You don't know who's going to stand up and advocate for you when. And hence, you have to kind of not just keep in touch, but at times do things for people when there isn't really something in it for you immediately. Do it because for the joy of doing and for the experience of it. So I would, whenever we think of sponsorship, we think of, people in the hierarchy, in the line. But many times in my career, sponsorship has come and advocacy has come because of, either a client or an ex-boss who's done it for me. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is, especially in the tech industry. I mean, I come from the tech industry, and we're hoping to find a lot of women technologists through this program here. We struggle to find women in those roles, right? And a lot of time when there are women, trying to look for other women role models, there are very few, far and in between. And then there is a hesitation. So I think when you think of sponsors, right, let's not just think of women sponsors or men sponsors, but think of sponsors who will help further your career in your area of interest. And I think that is what has worked for me, over the years.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you, Merlyn. In fact, just when you were talking about the last part, I was remembered of a study that was done by Center for Work-Life Policy, where I'm quoting them, they're saying, what is holding women back isn't a male conspiracy, but a surprising absence of advocacy from men and women in position of power. So it's not just the men who can do it, even women can make that happen. So that's a wonderful experience that we have heard you all share for this session today. And the other thing is about, many times we mix up with mentorship and sponsorship. We assume that mentorship is equivalent to sponsorship, right? But it's not. Sponsorship requires a lot more investment. Sponsorship requires a lot more long-term commitment and the trust building that happens over a period of time, right? Mentorship is about probably sharing some knowledge that you have and building somebody else's, knowledge in that process. But sponsorship to me is not about turning on and off occasionally, but it's a consistent commitment to push some agenda, push some talent, and identify the talent and push for that, right? So my question to you, and let me start with Merlyn, is how can women find the right sponsors so that they can get the right support and guide? And then we can, go to the other panel members.
So as you rightly said, right, Kannan, see, a sponsor is somebody who is looking at their protege to actually further their vision, okay,
Yeah.
help them build their legacy, and be benefited with this complementary exercise, as opposed to being a mentor where I'm giving them advice and that's about it, right? So there's a lot of personal agenda that the sponsor is driving, and also personal reputation that rides with the protege, right? So it's quite a fine balance that the sponsor is also taking in terms of putting himself or herself out there. So when you're choosing or you're trying to look for a sponsor, I think the first thing one should look at is what is one's own goals, right? Am I headed to becoming, say, a delivery head, or am I going to be a P&L owner, or am I going to do something more strategic? I think knowing where one wants to head 4 to 5 years from now would be a good starting point, because these are not instant noodles, right? They don't cook instantly. I mean, not in 4 minutes at least, right? So we have to be also willing to invest our time and energy in it, but the goals have to be very, very clear. Once you've, have your goals identified, then you go about looking for a sponsor for two reasons. One is, you want to work in that area which is going to further you. Second, in trying to do that, you're also helping further the sponsor's agenda, right? So I think that is very important. The second thing I would think is you have to think like the sponsor, right? So for instance, if Kannan, you're my sponsor, what in me would interest you, right? Why would you pick me as a protege versus somebody else, right? So it's very important to first put ourselves in the shoes of the sponsor, and then figure out, what makes me the right proposition for the sponsor even, right? It's not just about me, it's about the sponsor as well. The other bit I think is it's very important to develop expertise. That is when a sponsor will take a bet on you. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, right? And not just expertise, you should have done it a couple of times well and at scale, whatever it is that you are doing, right? So you will have to go that extra mile. And as I said, there are times where you will have to put up your hand, be part of your sponsor's agenda, even if it's not your line job today, right? Finally, I think a lot of women, we struggle with networking, right? And the word itself is so funny because there is work in it, right? So it's networking. And I think when we look at it as work, it becomes a bit of a burden. We prioritize everything else on top of networking, but I think it's about building connections. So when we say we're building connections, it's about, building these connections with like-minded people and people who are pursuing similar goals, right? So I think, that's the other bit. And the last thing I would think is speak up. That is another big hesitation for women, right? We'll generally not put a hand up and say, I can run that $1 million project for you. And there are times when there will be a naysayer or somebody who says, hey, but you've only done maybe 250K worth of project, right? But, speaking up and saying, I can scale, I can do this, is something which makes you attractive to a sponsor. So I think it's some or many of these in different proportions that work for people at different points in their career.
Yeah. It sounds like a whole lot of work that we need to do, and some parts of it, I'm reminded of building that personal brand, right? That the previous session they spoke about, and some parts of it, I'm also reminded, you may be a HR professional or a finance professional. How many people from the other functions know about you?
Know you, yeah.
So that is equally important. Jayashri, what are your thoughts on this?
I think I'll build on what Merlyn said, and she brought in some wonderful points. Building that network becomes so much more important in building visibility, right? When you enter the workforce, you feel that, okay, there is an HR process, there is a performance review process, and there's a talent map, and it will take care of itself. But I think the reality is when you're looking at multitude of areas in which you want to grow, I think that visibility piece through networking becomes important, number one. Merlyn talked about putting your hand up for doing things, right? And absolutely true. And I can give you an example personally as well. So at Johnson & Johnson, we run a program called Grow. Now that is essentially saying that, hey, put up your hand for probably giving 20% of your time into an assignment that stretches you, that probably builds new muscles for you. And in doing so, you are able to then demonstrate that here is somebody who is willing to go beyond your regular ways of work and show capability, and that would be an excellent way of building visibility as well. while we say that networking is hard work, I think it's a reality as well, to be able to understand and look at opportunities that are coming up across the organization. So spending that maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes every day over coffee or at the water cooler, I think being very mindful of doing that at least every week becomes extremely important. And then when you're breaking it down into these smaller little interactions, it does not look as daunting as it would otherwise. So, I mean, I can go on with many examples, but bringing in visibility, putting your hand up sometimes for stretch assignments whenever you can, really would be important ways of looking for sponsors within your organization or outside as well.
True, true. And when you talk about this kind of networking and putting a plan in place around this, also we should remember that it has to be authentic, right? You cannot put up a thing because you want to, show yourself up.
Absolutely.
It has to be original. There has to be a lot of hard work going into it. I can imagine all that you're talking about. And when it comes to women, it is that much more daunting in that sense. You'll have to put that extra bit of effort always, right? Wonderful. Thank you. Suman, what are your thoughts? I mean, especially from a manufacturing industry point of view.
I would say that, I will also go by what Merlyn and Jayashri has told. There are three aspects of it. One is sponsoring, another is networking, third is the branding. Now, when we were looking at this job for women or women into the system or manufacturing, we looked at, it cannot be a HR agenda. Who is going to get benefited? It has to be, business is getting benefited. So we have made a managing director who is a powerful in the organization as champion of this program. Point number one. Point number two, as an organization, we looked at, while we are talking about networking of women into the organizations, but as an organization, are we creating that platform? Are we giving them that platform? We realized that we are not giving them that platform at all. So therefore, we had created a cohort of women talent into the organization. And they have been given, they have been told that you choose your leader, you get to know who are you, because we have taken it from multiple businesses, we have taken it multiple areas of function, not with HR. We have told first batch, no HR should be there. And we have put into everybody into that function, and we are told we will look into this, how this networking is working, maybe after 8-9 months. And as of now, you build this network, you get to know each other, and you become voice for yourself, that what you want to do in the organization, why can't, anything. Don't look at, what is possible in Saint-Gobain or what is not possible. Come out with your ideas, come out with and challenge us that whether this is possible or not. There's a second part of it. You talk about manufacturing. Now, in the 2022, we had decided that one of our line which produces mirror, it has to be full woman. It has to be full woman, the line itself, including the line leader. So we had implemented that. We had implemented both the shifts, and I'm happy to share with you in 2023, by March, we are going to operate 3 shifts with women continuously. So absolutely, there are a lot of success stories which are there in Saint-Gobain. And the last part is the branding. We are working with the women talent also. How do we ensure that their branding we create? So anybody is coming from Paris, we expose them to them. We tell them, we prepare them how they should talk and what they should talk, which has a business sense and all those things. So I think that's the way we promote them in the organization so that they are successful.
Wonderful, wonderful. So much of experience that we can get to hear from each one of you. And like I said, I think re-emphasizing the fact that, sponsorship is not about one-time affair. It's not about just turning on and off. It's a continuous process. And all of us need to understand the investment that goes with it, because every leader comes with a very limited resource, right? And limited number of opportunities to invest on talent. And the leader is going to be he or she is going to be very careful in terms of choosing the right investment. And both from a leader's point of view and from the employer's point of view, it's important for us to ensure that this sponsorship doesn't go waste. right? And then there is a role model always available within the organization. That actually gets into my next question. What I want to understand is, okay, all right, now I have become a role model, right? I've been sponsored and I'm moving up the ladder. How can we ensure that we are able to be that role model who promote more of these initiatives, who go out and ensure that there are more people like us who can get sponsored, and we are doing the right things? So how do we become the role model? In a way, I'm remembered about what Indra once told me about the sisterhood, right? How can we be there for the others in terms of supporting them? So I'd like to hear from you, Suman. I'll start with you, Suman. Just continue the conversation. What do you think about this aspect? How is it that somebody can pay forward on this matter?
I would say I'll give a simple answer. I have a team member. Her name is Shreya. Shreya, a lot of times spoke about women in manufacturing, women leadership in the industry, and she has also spoke in Avtar platform as well.
Right.
So if she is fabulous, she's performing well. So when I assess her, I only tell her, Shreya, show me another Shreya you have created, maybe 50%, 40%. But you show me that you have created another Shreya, one or two. Balance, I don't need any delivery from out of you. Okay, so that's it. You just show it, and then and the people and the woman or the lady not behaving in that way. We tell them that what is that stopping you? Do you need support from the organization? If the support is because in St. Gobain, we feel whatever support you require, it's available. If somebody wants to go to abroad, somebody gets exposure to abroad, somebody wants a learning, coaching session, everything is available. So we continuously push them by telling that, what do you want? Please speak up, tell us, because otherwise we will not be able to know what do you want.
Right. Giving back and supporting other, talent within the organization, such an important aspect of leadership.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, I'm going back to my experience at PepsiCo, where one of the things that we measured on leadership quality is the ability for the leader to be able to share the talent, to be able to, pass on the talent to the other functions or other businesses, right? That's very important. And what are your thoughts, Jayashri and Merlyn? Any one of you can go.
Yeah, so I think, Kannan, see, it's about building other women up for me, and it doesn't matter whether they are 3 levels below or 4 levels below, right? So I go with two principles in mind. One is build women up, and the other shine a light on them. What that means is that talk about people's performance when they're not there, and that is much more powerful. So and they need not belong to your team. So for instance, if I have somebody in another enabling function and that person's done a fabulous job, speak about it, even if it's not a very, very big thing, right? So I think speaking about people when they're not there endorses them. And this kind of recall comes to mind when there is a big opportunity for them, right? The other thing is invite people over for some of these meetings that you're privy to. You can tell your boss that, say Shefali on my team, she's an upcoming leader, and I'd just like her to come and sit in here and observe what we do.
Yeah.
And, so long as it's not confidential, so on and so forth, right? So take a person along with you. And sometimes I feel it's not, honestly, Kannan, it's not about a man or a woman, right? Your protege, whoever it is, right? You kind of open doors for them, you open opportunities for them, and you build for them even when you're not there. So I think those are the 2 or 3 things that I would think that we should do consistently.
Wonderful. I'm reminded of another initiative that we started, which is called the shadowing program, where each and every top performing talent would shadow the CEO or any couple of his direct reports for a week or 10 days, and they would sit through all the meetings that the CEO would sit through and just observe. That's it. That itself is a great kind of spotting talent and giving them that exposure. Wonderful. Jayashri,
so
anything
Madeline,
else?
actually, Madeline Albright had actually said this, right? There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. So I've taken that quite seriously through my career. I don't want to go to hell for sure.
Wonderful.
And
Very well
she's
said.
and she was quite a powerful woman herself, right? So
Okay.
Indeed.
let's try to practice it.
Yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
So I
Jayashri, anything from your side?
Yeah, just a couple of things that I want to add. And especially for women who are in senior roles or who sit at the table when decisions or policies are made, this
Mhm.
becomes even more important, right? And amplified manyfold, that how do you make sure that you're supporting more women? Um, Maybe tweaking a bit what Merlyn said is consciously getting these individuals or proteges or whatever you want to call them to sometimes present their work rather than taking it from them and going into meetings. Giving them a fantastic platform, therefore, to be able to speak to senior leadership builds a very credible,
Yeah.
presence and experience for them as well. So that's number one. Number two, I think if I look at the way you can change even hiring per se, or weigh in on how talent acquisition policies are created. So, for example, at J&J, we've started something called as Reignite, and many companies, I'm sure, would be doing it. What this does is basically look at women who've taken a break for whatever reasons in their career, but are now keen to come back, right? How do you shape that? How do you go ahead and rally across the organization saying, hey, let's look at this program. Let's look at the talent that already has experience and try and bring them back into the workforce. So that's another way. And then I think also pushing and challenging the larger, pool of women in terms of, again, through conversations on various platforms, being able to say, hey, what's your aspiration? What's your own personal goal? How are you articulating that? How are you bringing that forth in every conversation that you have? Having those little conversations really would help. And I think, therefore, if I look at not just in your daily jobs, but in the policy shaping that you want to do, or
Yeah.
in those casual conversations that you have, there is plenty that women can do in supporting
Yeah.
women.
Yeah. I think we need to put that kind of a process in place intentionally so that it really picks up within the organization. Yeah. No,
So
go
there are
ahead, Mathew.
structured, so for instance, at Persistent, we have a structured sponsorship program, right?
Mhm.
It takes a couple of checks and balances for women to get into it. This program is called Aspire, and it is for women who aspire to go to the next level, right? And I'm sure other organizations have similar things.
Right.
And through this program, we also give them different experiences through 3 or 4 quarters, so that then they can identify with what they want to do next. And that next may not be immediate next. I mean, they may still have to finish their current assignment, so on and so forth. But I'm sure most organizations have, such pipeline building exercises,
Yes.
and exposure mechanisms for
Yes.
women.
Yes. Increasingly, that's happening. That's the good news. But you know what? When I was practicing and when I was in organizations, one of the bigger challenges I faced was when we talk about allies within the organization in some of these initiatives, we only found and we were only talked about men as allies, right?
Yeah.
But I think that has to change, and I'm glad that it is changing rapidly. But in my days, when I was, about a decade ago, it used to be very challenging to find women as allies, right? How do you see this trend shaping up, and what do you see as a role of women to become allies within the organization in promoting talent, both men and women talent? Because for me, my career progression was supported by at least 3 women. I have benefited from women supporting me as allies, right? As sponsors. I'm just wondering how we can look at some of these things within the organization, and what is the experience as of now? Go ahead, Jayashri, you want to take this?
Sure. So I think, Kannan, you hit the nail on the head in terms of saying, hey, how can we have women allies as well? And while I was, looking at this particular topic earlier, I realized that at J&J, when I looked at the early 1900s, there was actually a club created by the women employees then, which was called as a Laurel Club. And I'm sure there was merit in it, because when I see over the years and now in 2023, looking at women's leadership and inclusion or any other employee resource groups, the importance of having women as allies comes out very, very strongly. I think one that one it does is create a very psychologically safe environment for people or women to come up and say, hey, this is something that I'm wanting to do, or this is a challenge that I have, or here is an assignment that I want to put my hand up to. How do I get ready for this? And I think in having that particular girl club, or power of the pack, or whatever you want to call it, really gives huge dividends. I think what we need to change is for women to be apologetic or being hesitant to be a part of this. There has always been a fear saying, oh, they will classify this as a women's club, and oh, they will call this, a Mahila Mandal. How do you go over that barrier and say it's okay to have a all women's club because they have seen practical challenges? They have seen exactly what it takes to sensitize and educate the environment, and how do I build on this? But having said that, I think I would still say there's a lot of work on sensitization that needs to be done, where allies in the form of men are really, really important. And taking them through the nuances of everyday challenges that women face and making them aware of those becomes extremely important. So I would say work needs to be done both ways.
Both sides.
But yeah, I mean, and we can talk about it much more as well.
Yeah. Merlyn, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think, as Jayashri said, women as allies, we need to, I wouldn't say band together, but we need to exchange our experiences so that becomes collective wisdom and people don't feel, hesitant or left out, right? So if I've made tough decisions when my children were growing up and I've lived through the guilt of it, and if I can kind of talk to my protege saying that it's okay to feel that, but you will get over it. Those are practical things that we can offer as support to each other, right? The other bit, Kannan, I think is we need to also band together and have this allyship to overcome a lot of unconscious biases. Okay. Even as a woman, I may still have those unconscious bias. Saying, it was tough when, I had children growing up and maybe I should not offer this assignment to her. Or maybe, year after next is when I will ask her, things like that, right? So I think this unconscious bias, breaking that is a precursor to, or is as important as building allyship. And I think it's a constant thing because the biases change. And one of the things that I think we should also be aware of is the fact that now we have a workforce, at least in the IT industry, we have a workforce with an average age of 30, 32, right? They're a completely different generation. And hence some of our thoughts may not kind of gel with them. So the way they view sponsorship and the way they view progression is quite different. And which is why sometimes you also have to have allyship with people outside, your own kind. So, dealing with women in that age group is very, very different than, say, women who've been around for much longer. So I think it's quite a multi-pronged problem to solve for.
Yeah. You touched upon the topic of unconscious bias in the process. I'll come back to that and I'll ask your thoughts a little more on that. Suman, anything else that you have to talk about? You have any experience of?
No, I think I will echo with what Merlyn was telling. It's a multi-pronged, approach which is taken. And yes, I was benefited when, in my early days of career, say 2004-5, I had the privilege of working with Leena Nair. She was CHRO at that point of time. And if my career has really shaped, yes, she has contributed a lot in my career, number one. Number two, I think what I agree with other panelists also, women should speak. And because of that, we had created that cohort. But there is a further challenge as well, because I have a daughter who is 18 years old. Sometimes I don't understand what she wants. So therefore, it's a generation gap. We don't understand. So in our organization also, if I look at our average age is very, very low, and we are filled up with Gen Y and Gen Zs and all those things. So we are only continuously asking them, what do you want? Because we have accepted we don't know them, what they want. So therefore, I think we have accepted that we don't know. Let us ask what they want. And we look at all the policies, so-called parameters and all those things. And how do we become more flexible? I think that's the way to go, I would say.
Wonderful, wonderful. In fact, what you said just now is segueing into the last point that I want to talk about, this bias thing, how much ever you talk about, the bias and stereotyping still will continue to prevail, right? And
Yes.
one of the more effective ways I've seen in my career is building processes and systems around intentionally to bust these biases or cross over these barriers, right? And we call them enablers in the DEI language. I'd like to hear from you, what are those enablers that you have created to, as much as possible, remove these biases? And Suman, go with you.
I think last 1.5 years or 2 years, I think we had challenged the status quo. And
Okay.
from there, we had the evolution has happened. Now, today in Saint-Gobain, no manager asked, why I would, I will appoint a woman. I will appoint a lady. Those kind of discussions are not happening, okay? Because earlier it used to happen, okay, if we appoint, marriage will happen and then she will not go. I'm not taking the negative thought of it, but from there, I think evolution has happened today. Ecosystem is ready to take, and they are looking for that. Can you give us more? Can you give us more? We would like to explore. And because they have seen these benefits, they have seen this benefit. In last year, in October 2022, see, according to me, today, policies and procedures, what we have followed, say, past 20 years, 25 years, it doesn't work because you need to be flexible, because business is flexible, generations are flexible. We need to be flexible in policies and procedures. So last year in September, I think we had introduced a leave for the woman for their biological need. We had told it's a week care leave. Okay. And there we have told in this leave, you do not have to take permission from anybody. It's a leave. You have to just apply. That's it. And it's only featuring in our app, which is applicable for the woman. Males are not having. Now, if you ask me, is there a discussion by any of the male why we will not have another additional leave? Maybe 1 or 2 incidences will be there, but there we have to chase them. We have to ask them, do you need that? And when you, I think, openly talk about in the organization, ecosystem, comes to an equilibrium, and then people start accepting it. And I'm very happy after implementing that, women are taking it, and there is no manager who is questioning it. Also, I'm happy in that. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I think it's
great.
important to
great
challenge the status quo.
Challenging the status quo, yeah. And you also talked about asking questions. What do you want?
Yes.
Will help in terms of formulating some of these things. Jayashri, any thoughts from your end?
Yeah, couldn't agree more with Suman. I think having those conversations become important, right? And I would bring in 2 more perspectives as well. As a senior woman leader, again, people also observe you a lot, especially in various conversations, how you're reacting to a question, how you're reacting to a discussion. And that also perhaps gives them a lot of signals and insights saying, okay, these are topics that are okay to, converse, or here is a topic which will get this reaction, so it's fine. But I also realize that when it comes to asking questions, or when it comes to, like Suman was saying, about their extra leave, or when a woman is coming back from their maternity leave or break, having that unconscious bias, a deeper, more focused conversation with that person really helps. And I'll give you the most recent example. We have a sales employee based out of Hyderabad, with a possible request coming from her saying, I need to move to Delhi. I've just had a baby and my family is also moving to Delhi. Now, how do you enable or empower your team member to handle this conversation? Saying, can we be objective about what this individual brings to the table? Do we have a position there? How do we enable her to make that transition? Rather than worrying about, or that individual worrying about, if I bring this up, will the woman employee think very differently of me? Will my woman manager think very differently of me? So bringing the focus on to what can be done rather than perceptions and biases has helped a lot.
Wonderful. Merlyn,
Kannan,
anything?
if you allow me 1 minute, Kannan, just to take,
please.
Jayashri's example. I would say, I have faced one example where a woman came back from maternity, and we thought, what role should we give to her? And yes, she has a young baby and all those things, and there we had given her options. Okay, there is a challenging role. This role you can take up, choices with you. And there is a less challenging role also.
Okay.
What is your choice? But don't even feel if you are taking less challenging role now, the more challenging role cannot come to you in 1 year time when you feel that you are stable. Okay.
Wonderful.
So at that point of time, that lady choose to take a low challenging task, and she openly told, thanks for giving this offer, and I think I'll be able to do it by after 1 year. So think about me at that point of time.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. Merlyn, you want to say something?
Yeah, so I think, Kannan, to be able to break biases, as Jayashri said a little earlier, there have to be role models at various levels, right? So if I look at Persistent, yes, we have 32% women across rank and file, but we've taken a conscious goal to increase women leadership, okay? And that could be through internal infusion or external hiring. We're very proud that 2 of our 7 board members are independent board members are women, right? And our women employees actually have access to these board members. So we make it a point for them to come and give talks to our employees so that they know what does it take to get there. Because a lot of times you don't have that kind of a career path or a trajectory that you know of somebody that you can go to talk to, right? We have 2, our stellar salespeople, 2 of them are actually women. And we encourage that they come and they sell in North America. They're Indian women,
Okay.
who are staying in North America, who've made this move, taken up this choice. So we encourage people to talk about that, right? The CEO's direct leadership team, there are 2 out of 7 people who are women, right? So we do that. The other bit is, just taking off what Suman said, right? Since I manage the talent in the organization, one of the things I've told my team is when you know that somebody is coming back from either long leave or maternity leave, and here, of course, long leave could also be men, let us talk to them 3 or 4 weeks before their leave gets over. Okay, so this will then help us, give them options to take projects up, and it also prepares them mentally. It also makes them feel welcome, that they are welcome back to the organization. The other bit is at the entire funneling stage of, your CV, your interview, and your final hires, ensure there is proper representation. So I think, that's something that we've been practicing. And as you rightly said, having the policy and having the processes to monitor the policies, is equally important outside the training and the sensitization aspects.
Right. Oh, I just wanted to understand from all 3 of you, what kind of metrics do you follow to check on the talent pipeline or the next 2 level talent? Any examples of that?
Yeah, so we do monitor, the gender ratio very, very carefully at every grade, Kannan. And while we hire, at least at the graduate level, 40-45% of our hires are women.
Yeah.
When life events happen, we see that number drops down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that is something that happens. So we've looked at policies towards that. The other bit, as I said, is when we are hiring for senior roles, we at least, I mean, it has to be merit-based at the end, but the representation has to be fair. So are we talking to enough women? And we do not encourage our talent acquisition team to say that this is a diversity role, it can't be. It has to be a merit-based role, but ensure that you have taken the trouble to, find enough candidates and not restricted yourself. I think these are a couple of things that we have put in place.
Right. Anything from your end?
Yeah, very similar. I think when you look at hiring right off the campus to all the way to senior levels, making sure that there is a balance and very well researched pool of candidates that you look at, which kind of looks at gender, I think becomes very, very important for us. And I see that happening very consciously. And like Merlyn said, I think gender ratio across levels, but more importantly in the commercial organization where representation sometimes can get skewed, is something that we look at very consciously and saying, how do we make this better and improve this a lot? I think the other piece which works, which I'm sure is there in the other organizations, is also when there are exit interviews happening, especially with the talent that is regrettable loss for us, really understanding where, there are opportunities for us to do better. Whether it is a female or a male talent also goes a long way in terms of telling us, hey, here are things that you could probably tweak to make things better from a diverse population that comes through.
Thank you, Jayashri.
Couple of sentence from my side as well. What other panelists have also told, we look at gender ratio at all level. We also have identified positions. We call it targeted hiring, definitely without compromising the talent. We give really focus on these positions. First of all, it has to be a woman. Okay. We give that kind of mandate and without compromising the talent. And while owners comes to us also to look for that kind of resources from the market, etc., we are very often also started looking at that, matching the person to the profile, or is there a need to tweak profile little bit to match the person? Okay. Can we do that also a little bit without compromising the business agenda? So that's another activity which we are also doing currently, to ensure that our percentage goes up.
Wonderful, wonderful. One thing I always quote when you talk about diversity and inclusion in an organization, DEI is not about right or wrong. It's about understanding. And what I hear all of you say today, especially in the subject of sponsorship and career progression, is about there are many ways you can address some of these things. There is no one single way, or there is no one right way. There are many ways. It has to suit each one organization, but there has to be intentionality from the leadership point of view. There has to be intentionality from the employees' point of view. And there has to be that intentionality from the leaders who are sponsoring point of view. And I think a combination of all of this is what will ultimately work and ultimately deliver an organization where we have equal opportunity for all diverse set of people. And I'm so happy that we have had this panel discussion, such rich conversations. And I'm sure if I keep talking to you, there'll be a lot more we can mine in terms of the experience that you bring to the table. But given that we don't have the time, I really thank you so much for taking time off, for being here, sharing your experiences. And I'm sure the participants have a huge takeaway from this session. So thank you very much. And this is the end of the program. And over to you, Mansa.
But thank you, Kannan, for nicely moderating the entire session. I think I was personally so comfortable in answering those directed questions, which had really helped me to answer your question rightly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kannan, for having us this afternoon.
Thank you, Merlyn.
It was a pleasure associating with myAvtar. I think it brings learnings for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayashri. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mansa.
Thank you, team. Thank you so much. That was an amazing and engaging panel discussion. Job fairs are important for several reasons. They provide an opportunity for job seekers to meet with potential employers. They also allow employers to connect with a large pool of potential candidates. I hope you had the opportunity to connect with employers, gained exposure to a variety of job opportunities, used in networking and interview opportunities. I would now like to thank our title partner, Providence India, session sponsor, Persistent Systems India, associate sponsors, Backbase India LLP, Cargill India Private Limited, Fidelity International, Tata Communications, Kellogg Brown and Root Engineering, and Construction India Private Limited, Moody's Shared Services, our supporting sponsor, Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center India Private Limited, our participating companies, Johnson & Johnson Private Limited, Emphasis Limited, St. Gobain India Private Limited. Thank you once again for being with us today and have a great day and weekend. This is Manasa Sai Shekhar signing off.